Welcome back. Today we are going to add jumping animation and aim offset animation to our character in the game that we've been making inside of Unreal Engine. If you've missed my previous videos, you can go ahead and go to my YouTube channel, Paul Fritz Animation, and get caught up on those previous videos and get to this point that we're at today. So let's go ahead and get started. So we left off last time with our character having some move animation. And we can run around, but our jump is not looking so good. Kind of runs in the air. We can move forward, left, right, backwards, but our jump doesn't work so well. And when we go to aim, she just pretty much kind of spins around, but doesn't aim in the direction that we're moving our mouse. So let's go ahead and get that fixed. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into our animation blueprint. So for those of you who don't remember where that is, we're going to go into our content, and it's going to be under our blueprints, under our pawns, and then our character. And then there's this animation folder that we put together, and our animation blueprint, we put that in there along with our blend space. We're not going to be opening the blend space right now, we just need the animation blueprint. So once you double click and open that up, it should bring you into your animation graph, something that, like this perhaps. You may even be in the event graph. What we want to do is we want to start out here in the animation graph. If it's not up here in the tab, look down here on the left hand side. It may be hidden under animation graphs right here. So if you hit that little down arrow, you can double click on that and that'll open up this animation graph for us. Alright, so we left off with the state machine and our output pose. If we double click on our state machine, it takes us into our entry, and here is where that blend space that we put together, this is where it resides, remember? Okay, so let's go ahead and go back out to our state machine, and right here is where we're going to put in our jump options. So let's go ahead and get that started. Here on the left hand side we have or right hand side rather, we have all of our different animations that are with our character. Your character may have more or less. Hopefully they have some jump animation, okay? Now yours may be named a little bit differently than mine, so when you look through your animation, what we're looking for is a jumping start, so the part where the character first jumps up into the air. And for mine it's called jump start, okay? Then we're looking for that next one, which is called jump apex in mine. And the jump apex animation is where the character is kind of up in the air at the very peak of their jump. So look for something like that in your animation if it's not called the same thing. And then the last thing we want is jump recovery. Now my character has several animations included with it, which we could use and kind of really fine tune the type of animation that we're going to have, and we could even give us some different options for what our character jumps onto. But we're keeping this kind of simple right now, and we're going to start with just setting up a basic animation, okay? So I'm going to kind of move these out, give me a little bit of space, kind of put a little triangle shape here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to hover over our blend space, and we're going to click on the outer area. It turns white. We're going to drag it to the next outer area that turns white and drop it, and that's going to create this arrow. And we're going to do that for all of these. Whoops, I missed. Let's try that again. Alright, down into here, and then we're going to take the jump recovery and do that very same thing to the last one here. Okay, so now we have the initial construct built. What we got to do is we have to go in, and these little circles with these arrows are basically the conditions. We need to go in and set the conditions for each of these transitions. So these are transition conditions. So I'm going to double click on the first one. And basically he wants to know what condition is going to exist for our character to be able to transition to this animation. And for this one, our character needs to be in the air. So when we press the space bar, and we saw that, our character jumps up. We have that turned on as an option for our character. But we need to get the animation working. So we're going to go ahead and select is in air, get in is air, and we're just going to connect that up. And we have this first one done. Basically, it's going to say, is your character in the air? If it is, then we're going to transition to this jump animation. Now, if we hit compile right here, we're going to get some errors down here because we don't have any of these conditions set up for these. So we're going to go ahead and save this We're going to go back to our state machine, go to the next transition, put in our transition rule for this one, and this one is going to be called, let me go ahead and check my notes because I want to make sure I get the right name for it. All right, yes, time remaining ratio jump start. So time remaining ratio. So when you type in time remaining, you'll see you get two different choices here. You want the one that has ratio in the name, because this is going to be a ratio that we're going to use. And then the next thing we want to do is, we're not going to hook it directly into this. What we need to do is we need to have a control for this time and basically tell it how much time is going to exist. So when there is less than, so we're going to use a less than, so I'm pull out from there, so click on that little knob, pull it out, and then we're going to use our shift less than symbol, and we want it to be the float. Okay, so we want this float right here. And then we're going to plug in the other side of the float here, and we're going to make this less than condition less than 0.1. Oops. So it should be 0.1. All right, and with that, this one is done. This is going to mean that when the time is less than 0.1, we can transition to this next animation. So we're going to go ahead and compile that. We still have those other errors. We're going to save this real quick. Go back to our state machine, move to the next one. In this next one, basically, this is going to be, our character is no longer in the air. So if our character is no longer in the air, it's a not condition. Now remember, this is a Boolean right here. To get, this is set up as a Boolean. Get is in air, but we want to make it so it's false. Right now it's in the true condition. So we're going to pull off of here, and all we have to do is say a character is not. So we're going to type in not in the air, and then we're going to plug that in. And now that is good. So we're going to go ahead and compile it, save it. Okay, and we have one last one we need to fix, and that's this jump recovery. We're going to go right here, and this is going to be the same as the time remaining. So we're going to go ahead and right click, type in time remaining, and we want the ratio jump recovery. So time remaining for the ratio of jump recovery this time, and we're also going to give it a time constraint. So we're going to do a less than. So another less than. It's the float, less than float. Whoops, missed that. Connect it up, and we're going to use that same time as 0.1. These are times that we can come back in and adjust if we need to. We're going to go ahead and compile it. I'm going to save this. Let's go back to our level, hit play, take a look at what we've done. Now there's going to be some errors, and we'll go through and fix those here in a second. But if we jump, you see I've got this weird kind of repeating thing, and then she doesn't jump, and then she slides along the ground. But the animation is there. We can see it. We've got it started. So let's go ahead and figure out how to fix that out. Okay? I'm showing those to you because that's a mistake that happens sometimes, and if you see that, I want you to be able to recognize what the problem is and be able to go back in and fix it. So we're going to go back to our state machine, and this time I'm going to double click on each one of these animations that we drug in. So first I'm going to double click on this one, play jump start. Over here on the right hand side, you'll see that it has this little check mark called loop animation. That is what we're seeing. Basically, when we jump, there's enough time for the animation to loop a couple of times while we're jumping in the air. So we want to turn that off. We only want it to happen once. We're going to save that. Then we're going to go ahead and go back to the state machine. We're going to turn off loop for each one of these. Just click on it once, turn off the loop. Okay, save it. And then we're going to go back into jump recovery. We're going to double click on this. Whoops, went too far. Sorry about that. We're going to just click on it once. We're going to go ahead and loop the turn off the loop animation. And now we're going to save that. We're going to compile all of this. Go back in, and now let's take a look and see what our animation looks like. I can tell you we're still going to have another problem, and we'll fix that here in a minute. But as we're running along, she jumps, and then she hits the ground. But now we still have that slide going in for a little bit until the time is up. And what's happening there is that the animation is a certain length. If we take a look at what's happening there, you can see that the rest of the animation is happening. She's still doing that recovery, and as soon as she finishes her recovery, see her arms and upper torso move, then she moves, transitions back into the run animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify the animation for the recovery. So we're going to click back here. We should still be on our play jump recovery. If you've closed it, go back to it. We're going to double click on that animation and we're going to open it up. Now, a couple things are happening here. We have a rate scale that we can adjust how quickly our animation occurs. We can also see that we have some frames down here, and that's what this represents down here are the frames. As this animation occurs, each frame something is happening for the animation. But this is about 50 frames long, if I remember right. Down here it's showing 49, so 50 frames. And that takes a while for us to get through. You can see there's the animation. So let's go ahead and stop this animation. We're going to hit the pause button down here. We have our little controls down here along the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and move my animation. I can just hit the little back button here, go all the way to the beginning. And I'm going to try to cut this down significantly to fit within our time frame. Okay, so because we adjusted this to be at about 0.1, we do the math, it's going to work out to be about maybe 15 frames for us to be able to work with. So we're going to go ahead and cut this down to somewhere around where the animation looks pretty decent. It's probably more like about 14 frames, but I think we can get away with maybe 15. So I want to get to a point where her animation, she comes up, she's recovering from her jump, she starts to stand up, we get the weapon kind of brought back up right around 15. And we could even go a little bit past that, but I think I'm going to stop at 15. I'm not going to force this too much. So, and we can hit this little button there down here, and it kind of moves us along. This little one right here with the little one line behind it, the play button, it moves us one frame at a time. All right, so we're at 15, and I'm going to cut the rest of this animation. So it's pretty simple here inside of Unreal Engine. We just right-click on top of it, and right here it gives us a choice. We can either remove the frames before it or after that. I want to remove all the frames from 16 to frame 50. I'm going to remove that. So now, if I hit play, there's a much shorter animation, and we get her up into the standing position, and her weapon comes up. So now, we grab it, we can see that that is occurring right here. It was kind of hard to see that. So let's go ahead and save this and see what our animation looks like with this done to it. Okay, so now character runs, she jumps. Still get a little bit of a slide there, right there. Okay, but it's much better than it was before. So now we're going to go in and we're going to play with how quickly this occurs. So I'm going to hit escape, go back into my jump recovery animation, and right up here, our rate scale. We can adjust this number until we get it looking as good as we can get it. I'm thinking that it's at least 1.5 times, but I'm going to push it just a little bit past that to like 1.7 maybe. Hit enter, save it, go back in, and we hit play, and run, and jump, and still a little bit of a slide. So let's go ahead and try to go just a little bit higher. I'm going to go all the way up to 2. I'm going to double the speed of it, just to see what that looks like. It may be too much, and then we know that it's somewhere between 1.7 and 2.0. All right, so if I run, I jump, and actually that looks pretty decent. Get a little bit of a shuffle there. It's not too bad. Okay, so pretty good. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stay with that. I'm going to stay with 2.0. Now you may have to play around with your numbers because your animation, depending on the character you're using, is going to be a little bit different. You're going to have to cut it down, and you're going to have to play with the frame rate. But for that time period of 0.1, you should be somewhere around 14, 15, 16 frames. You might be able to push it just a little bit past that or cut it just a little bit before that, but try to keep it somewhere around there, and then go in and play with that number right up here for your animation rate scale right here until you kind of get it looking good the way you want it to look. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is we have our character. If I hit play, our character is jumping right, but we still don't have our aim point looking right. Okay, she's just kind of standing there as we should be aiming down. We should be aiming up to the left and right. All right, so this character, my character, came with some animation already done for us in the blend space. So I'm going to go into my content folder, I'm going to find my characters, which are right here, into my Lieutenant Bellica folder, my characters, heroes, Bellica. And then we have these animation folders in here. Okay. And we have these things called blend spaces right here. Okay. And then we also have aim offsets. That's what we really want to talk about, or aim offsets. Okay. So I'm going to click on my aim offset, and we can see that this character has this whole slew, whole bunch of them anyway. And down here, the AO stands for aim offset, okay? And then, so the CC and the CD, so this is center, this is center down, so this is center center, this is center down, this is center up, and if you take a look at the animation, you can see that that's exactly what that is. And it's basically just a still image, or just one frame of this animation for this character. You can see it exists at one frame. If I hit play, nothing really happens. She's just holding still. It's just the one frame. If your character doesn't have those, this may be something that you end up having to create yourself. And I just closed that whole thing, so let's go back and open it back up again. All right, so I'm not going to create an entire idle aim offset, because that's what we're going to do, is make an idle aim offset. Because all of these animations already exist in the one that came with my character. And you're probably wondering, well, you made us redo the whole blueprint. Why are we doing this one? Well, why aren't we doing this one? Because, again, they're all here. I'm just going to end up making the exact same thing. So I'm going to talk through what we're actually looking at here. Okay. Now, when we take a look at our axis settings up here for both our horizontal and vertical axis, you'll see that we have a yaw direction, which is this down here. So yaw would be the movement of the mouse left and right, so we're turning, okay? And then pitch is up and down, right? So just like think about it as you're flying a spaceship, right? So up and down, that's our pitch. What we're doing is over here on the right hand side, we're taking these different idle aim offsets, and for this character they're named pretty well. Your character, you may have to actually look at the visual and open each one and maybe rename it so you understand what it is. But the point here is that we want to get our aim center center. So this one right here is this AOCC right there. Okay, if I hover over it, you'll see that, well, let me move that out of the way. If I hover over it, you'll see that that's what that is. Okay, then this next one up here is going to be our AO center up, so AOCU. And then this one is going to be our aim center down. And if I move the little controller here, you can see that's down, that's up. And then we're just going to make variations of that. To this direction over here is going to be her left direction. So even though it actually corresponds to us as well. So if I hover over this, you'll see that that is our AO left center. Okay, this is going to be our AO left up and AO left down. Okay, and then all the way over here, this is going to be back. So when I move over here, you can see that she's now looking back behind her to do these particular animations. Okay, so this is AO left back up, left back down. Of course, this is center. And then for the opposite, it's the exact same thing: right, up, center, down, right, back, up, right, back, center, and right, back, down. Okay, so that is really all we're doing, is we're taking those individual frames and putting them here. There is no actual movement or animation occurring in this other than what we're doing. We're doing this blending of it here in this aim offset, where again, this is a blend space and we're using it to create this aim offset. Now what we got to do is we actually need to put it into our scene, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our animation blueprint for our character. We're going to go all the way back up to the top where the state machine is, okay? And we're going to go ahead and pull this out of here. And I wonder if that's why that's not working the way it's supposed to. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and disconnect this. So I'm going to hit the control button, or is it the alt button? I always get mixed up. The alt button, disconnect that for right now. And what we want to do is, because it's already made for my character, and if you've made yours, so basically you're going to go through the whole process of, and let me just step all the way back so that if you're having to actually make this, I'm going to go ahead and go into my content folder. I'll move that in a little bit. So if I go to my blueprints, back into my pawns, my character, my animation, okay, we're going to go ahead and go into our animation, and we actually have one here called an Aimoffset, and you're going to select that. You can see that it was a little bit different than the regular blend space that we used before. So this is what you're going to use. You're going to create this. You're going to name it your idle aim offset, and you can even put your character's name in front of it so that you can keep track of which one it belongs to if you're going to have more than one character. All right, and then once you've got that created, you'll open it up, and it'll be basically, this is blank. You're going to put in your yaw. It's going to be a negative 180 and a 180, and then your pitch is going to be negative 90 and 90 for our directions. All right, and that will be all set up. You drop your animations in here, you save it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to come back here to our animation graph. Out here to where our state machine is, we're going to disconnect it from the outpost, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab this idle aim offset. We're going to pull it in, and we're just going to drop it right there. All right, and now this is going to be our base pose, and then we're going to come out from here. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to put our camera pitch and yaw into here. Certainly our camera pitch, get. And our camera yaw. I'm going to go ahead and compile it and save it. Okay, so now when we hit play, let's see what happens here. Okay, okay. That would be got our aim down. All right, so my mistake, I'm putting the camera yaw in there. We only want the camera pitch because it really makes it look like I'm breaking her when I turn too far. We don't want that. So let's go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my blueprint here. I'm going to disconnect the yaw. We're just going to keep the pitch. Just delete this one. Go ahead and hit compile and save. Let's go back. Try that again. All right, so now we've got her. So she's aiming up. She's aiming down. All right. As we're running forward. Okay, so that gets us started there. And that should be everything at this point in time. So thank you for watching, and if you like what you saw, please like my video. Also, if you are wanting to, you can go back in, check my channel, and see what other videos you might want to watch. Subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.